Hey, what's up, and welcome to the Loaded Radio Podcast, the weekly dive into everything that matters in hard rock and heavy metal. I'm your host, Scott Penfold, and today's episode, well, it's a big one. Okay, we're kicking things off with a very special guest, Chris Adler, legendary former drummer of Lamb of God, who's also played with Megadeth, Protest the Hero, and now fronts two incredible projects, Firstborne and Shallow Rising. You may have seen the teaser clip we dropped earlier this week. It exploded, and rightfully so. Over 200,000 views in a matter of days, with outlets across the metal world picking it up. But today we bring you the full, unfiltered conversation. Chris talks openly about his departure from Lamb of God, his battle with musicians Dystonia, and what it was really like working with Dave Mustaine. It's raw, it's honest, and it's exactly why we do this show. And on top of that, we also have a new feature we're premiering this week right here on the podcast called Inside the Underground, where we talk to, well, people like you and me, whether it be musicians, editors of particular metal magazines or websites, or people who are just involved in metal or music and what they do and how they contribute to the, zeitgeist, I guess, that is heavy metal. We've got Mr. Joe Davis joining us this week, who is an absolutely incredible musician who has got some incredible stories, man, and has got some connections to some pretty legendary names. So stick around for that after we talk to Chris. Real quick, before we get into it, don't forget you can catch all past episodes, interviews, metal news, feature articles, and our 24/7 online stream at loadedradio.com. Also, if you haven't already, hit subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening right now. And also don't forget to download the Loaded Radio app. It's completely free and available at loadedradio.com or wherever you get your apps, okay? But enough of that. Let's get into it. It's a big one this week as we are now being joined by Chris Adler. Chris, how you doing, man? Great to have you on the podcast.
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Fantastic, man. You know, it's really great to speak with you. I got to say, you know, I've worked in rock radio for over 23 years now, and I do this for a living. And dude, you were hands down my most favorite drummer in metal, dude. So this is like, I'm just an interview. I'm a fan today, dude. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
That's
great to hear. And congrats to you on making a living doing that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been over 20 years, and I've done pretty okay with it. So you know what, knock on wood that I can keep doing that. And you as well, being a drummer, of course. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I know. I was just talking to somebody like 20 years. I was in it for about 22, 23 years, and that in itself is a career. I mean, you're out of the military in 20 years, so. Yeah, we're both apparently doing pretty well with it. So good.
We're doing something, man. Yep. I got to dive into so much stuff. Of course, the new Firstborne. I want to talk about that, man. I mean, you're drumming on the album. It feels urgent. It feels sharp, almost punk in spirit, I'd say. What statement are you making with Lucky that maybe you couldn't within Lamb of God or Megadeth or any other project you've done before?
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for asking the question. It's been quite a journey from those projects to this one. A lot of like self-development, reinventing, kind of a chapter 2 on the whole thing. And really, you know, I didn't want to, I wanted to continue on playing. It's a great creative outlet, and it's kind of how I identify myself. I think that's how most people identify me. And I love doing it. I love playing. But I didn't want to in any way try to compete with what I had done. I don't think there's any real purpose in doing that or chasing that. I achieved far more than I ever thought I would be able to with those projects in a genre that, you know, really wasn't meant for everybody and seemed to somehow affect most people some way or one way or another. So the dent that I was hoping to make was made. And coming away from that and going through really honestly a lot of really difficult times trying to understand, you know, where do I go from here? What do I want to do? What does chapter 2 look like? It really was about trying to insert a bit of levity into it and to try to have a little more fun doing it and not be pigeonholed into, you know, this has to hit hard and it's got to be, you know, angry and, you know, there's got to be crazy patterns and I got to keep up this crazy, you know, what people expect from me. And, you know, I can't, you know, the metal scene is very, you know, I love it and I love being a part of it and I love listening to it, but it can be, you get pigeonholed pretty quick and you need to kind of maintain that or, you know, you get ripped apart. So I really had to switch gears and try to do something completely different. And I wanted to do something fun. I didn't know how to do that necessarily, but I'd been a fan of Myron, the guitar player, his previous instrumental records, and I'd done a drum clinic tour across India and met Garish, who in the drum clinic tour during the afternoon, we do kind of like the drum clinics in general, to me, have always been kind of boring. So I try to add a little bit of something to it. So it's more of like a TED talk. I'll play a couple songs, tell some stories, tell how the song came together, talk about this crazy shit that happened over here, whatever, play another couple songs. So that's fun. And then later that night, I would get together with like the hot shots from around India and play a show at the local rock club there. And Garish was the singer that had volunteered to be part of this thing. And man, he blew me away. I mean, I've been, the past, everything that I've done, well, not everything. I mean, Protest, Rody can sing very, very well. Dave's got a voice on him. Randy's kind of a machine, very percussive. But I never really heard anybody sing like Garish. I mean, it was this throwback to these kind of bands that we loved, in the late 80s, kind of fun metal. I don't know if that's a term, but like listening back to it now, it certainly seems a lot more fun than the metal that I was involved in. So that's kind of the direction I wanted to go in. And both of these guys had that vibe on their own. And so I reached out to both of them, Garish, while I was there. And Myro and I had bought his album. He sent an email saying like, "Hey, is this really you?" I was like, "Yeah, man. Like, I'd love to do something with you," and put it together. And so you asked about Lucky. I think it's a really great example of taking that, we're not down tuned to D or C, the thing that we're playing in E, which by itself makes things seem a little more lighter, a little friendlier, which I love getting back to that. And really coming up with things that made us feel good and not thinking about it too much, not letting ourselves get into any kind of headspace of what people might expect. When we recorded the record, it was the first time we had all actually been in the same room. The 20 or 24 songs we had released on YouTube and Bandcamp prior had been file sharing all over the world. And this was the first time that we were kind of breathing the same air. And we had about 100, honestly, we had about 100 demos that we had coming into the room that we had worked on long distance. And we shared those with Machine, who we were very lucky to work with. And the idea was to pick the best, 10, 12 of those and just track them. And a couple days before we went in, I kind of woke up and I was like, we've never been in the same room. Wouldn't it be interesting and maybe fun? It might be a disaster, but why don't we try just getting together, breathing the same air in the same room, and like knock things around like the way I've always done with the bands that I've worked with in the past. Like let's talk about this part, let's make it better, let's push each other a little bit here and there, but in the same way, not overthink it, because we had to do it really fast. Machine, we had 4 weeks there. Machine was like, there's no way we can write a record and record it in 4 weeks. And go ask him. He was shocked. I think within 6 days we had written 14 songs, because we weren't overthinking it or wondering what people are going to think of this. It was just like, this felt good right now, and the song sounds great. It's maybe way different than what any of us had done, but that's what we just came up with. So let's knock it out. And Lucky was one of those ones that it had the drive and the tone of it is, or even the key that it's in, it's very approachable. It's very friendly, but it's still kind of, like you said, there's like a bit of a punk metal thing to it, but in a very approachable way. So it's a good representation of actually the mindset that we were in and what we were hoping to achieve on the whole record.
You dropped Shallow Rising as well, much darker, more atmospheric. What inspired this shift into post-metal territory, and is this your most personal project yet, would you believe?
Oh, wow. That's interesting. That's a deep question. The Shallow Rising thing, Tim Ossenfort has been just a friend for a very long time. And he's a producer that does a lot of stuff. And he's asked me to show up and kind of session work this or that. And that's when I showed up, when he approached me about Shallow Rising. I don't even know if they had a name yet. He said, I've written a bunch of tunes. Would you come play some drums on it in LA? And so he, flew me out to LA, and I did it. And next thing I know, we've got a good collection of songs. He's put together basically a band. And it's like, yeah, I mean, the songs are cool. That I really didn't have much to do with writing those. I heard them for the first time in the studio behind the kit and just did what I could to help him out at the time, not thinking that it was like I was joining a band. But now that it's kind of come together, I'm more than it's impressive stuff and really, really cool. I really like it. And so I'm happy to be a part of that as well. Firstborn being more personal. Well, I think, if anybody knows Lamb of God from the beginning, I mean, wow, this is a deep question. So I think they know that, I put a lot into that band. I felt like, the first practice ever was at my house. I kind of picked the guys out, and I worked really hard for myself and for the guys the entire time. So that was my it became really my identity. That was about as personal as it's ever been. When I got to do the Protest the Hero record, that was one of my favorite bands at the time. So that was like a real rush for me to be able to do something, and that was by far the most difficult recording that I did. I'm probably the most proud of. I'm really happy for them that they won the Canadian Grammy for that. And so, that felt like a personal challenge. Like, can you actually pull this off? Which was amazing. And then, of course, getting the call to do the Megadeth thing when I was 14 years old, skateboarding around and trading cassettes of music, I heard a Megadeth song for the first time, and I remember the day, I remember the ramp, I remember the board I had. That set me on the path to do exactly this. Like, Megadeth was the thing that just flipped the switch. So when I got that call, that was like the greatest thing, and I was jumping up and down, like I could not believe it. I was going to be a part of my favorite band of all time, and to have that record, win a Grammy, it was just amazing. As things, progressed from there, and for different reasons, moving on into chapter 2, it took me a while. Like when I split from those projects, it was not ideal, and it was not kind of what I wanted. And so it hurt, man. I was really devastated by that whole thing. And it took me a while to kind of climb out of the hole. There were other things going on in my life. My mom passed away. I was in the middle of a terrible divorce. I'd had the motorcycle accident. And I haven't talked about this before, but I had at the same time in like 2016, 17, right in the end of 16, I was diagnosed with something called musician's dystonia, which basically is we can get into it, but I didn't want to talk about it at the time because I felt like it would really hinder my career, but I've gone through an incredible amount of work to be able to come back from it. What it is, and I've heard Alex Webster talk about this before, and I'm buddies with him, and recently saw the Nickelback documentary. I'm not the biggest Nickelback fan, but it's a great documentary if you haven't seen it.
I have.
Yeah, their drummer, Daniel, went through the same thing. It may have been with his arm or his hand, but he was diagnosed with dystonia. And for a drummer, really for anybody that plays an instrument, it's kind of a death sentence. So mine was with my right foot. Dystonia is basically a neurological condition where the nerve that controls the movement of any particular body part basically deteriorates to the point where that motion becomes impossible. So people that repeat the same repetitive motion for decades at a time, this happens to them. It happens a lot to like golfers, quarterbacks, first chair violinists, people that just practice the hell out of what they're doing. And this happened to me with my right foot. So I would be playing a song, and my foot, when I intended it to depress the pedal, would shoot off to the side or shoot back. And so I went through, and that was at the point where I was coming off stage just so depressed with my performance. I think the band was very frustrated, with my performance. I did give them, the medical paperwork. Here's what it is. Here's what we can do. There's just a couple songs that are really aggravating this. The rest I can get through if you're willing to change them. I think at the time I had also joined Megadeth, so tensions were really high, and we were never like the most functional group of people traveling around the world, if you know anything about the band.
I do.
Whoever was not in the room was basically getting picked on. And I think the combination of things got to the point where, they didn't want to deal with it, and I wasn't happy with my performances. So that kind of stopped the train. It was one of those emails, service is no longer required kind of thing. And that was devastating because it really was. I felt like it was my baby. It was my project, and I put my life into it. It was my identity. So I had to take some time. And of course, these other things that were going on, and really just trying to find a purpose, trying to decide what chapter 2 was going to be about. And I knew that I wanted to play. I knew that it would be stupid for me to try to compete with what I had done before, because we really did way more than anybody, including ourselves, thought we could have done. I felt like like I said, we talked about earlier, like 22 years of traveling the world. And, I don't really count the awards or accolades, but there really wasn't, I didn't feel like a whole lot more to achieve other than just proving that we were still around. So it wasn't like a total death sentence. I think I got off the train at a very good time. It was just because of the other circumstances that contributed to it that it was difficult for me to find any relief in that. I was more depressed and kind of searching for who I am and what I'm going to do next. So a couple of years of like intense practice, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and really the only way around dystonia is learning to do what you do in a different way. So in that my right foot was the issue, I really learned how to play drums backwards, where my left foot became my main foot, which would kind of trick my brain into trying to figure out how to get the right foot to not be the lead, which was using a different pathway. So I, over time, practiced that to the point where I was able to do the stuff that you're hearing on the Firstborn record. As far as it being personal, I think it was a triumph for me to get through that stuff, to still have the interest and ability to be able to play and to want to do it, and to then surround myself with people that it wasn't the same kind of situation that I had come from, where everybody's like maybe not getting along very well and somebody's getting picked on all the time. These were like genuine friends that had a genuine interest we all had a genuine interest in each other and our lives, and the same kind of music, which was this kind of more, it wasn't necessarily fun, but this kind of hard rock metal from the 80s and early 90s that we grew up on. It wasn't this like, no reason to try to, again, compete with the pummeling, we're harder than you are, and, rah, rah, rah kind of stuff. It was like, let's play something that kind of stuff that we listen to when we're home, I don't know, anything, Rat, Skid Row, whatever, that, when we're home making dinner, the stuff that's on the radio or that we put on Spotify. And so it was, again, I don't want to call it necessarily a triumph, but it was, I definitely came out of the hole that I was in. So, and to meet these guys and have them want to work with me, I definitely feel it was, I don't know, I'm very happy with myself. I'm very satisfied with the project. And it is it's a bit of a personal triumph for me. And I think these guys are super excited to be able to work with each other, work with me, and to have this product that, I don't know what it's going to do. I think people are probably going to hear it. Maybe a lot of people hear it because I'm in it, and certainly expect something wildly different than what it is. That's okay. And I had to swallow that as well. Like, I know people are going to expect this, but, if I don't feel like I would be doing myself any favors by doing the same thing again with different people. So I wanted to do something different, a little more fun, and a little more wide open, where we weren't, once we got together in the room, we weren't challenging the idea of what other people would like. It was just like, what'd you dream up last night as a riff? Okay, this sounds good. Like, here we go. And no, don't question, is that a genre? It's like, I don't even know what kind of song that is. But it does, it feels good right now. And let's not overthink it. And if it sounds good and we can get some good lyrics on it, let's do it.
I got to commend you for being able to work through something like that, man, and to come back in such a powerful way like you have. I mean, like, Chris, thanks for sharing that. First off, like, I don't think many people did have an idea that was going on. And you're right, but like, that's your kicker, man. You know what I mean? So that would have absolutely been very detrimental to your performance. So congratulations and bravo for pulling through and coming out on the other side, because I mean, that can end careers essentially, man. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it definitely could. I think it has. I think, I know a lot of people that have symptoms of it, but haven't been diagnosed with it. I think it's a little more common than some of the like lifelong players want to admit. I think they find ways around it, or they, I know a couple guys where it's like, okay, we're not going to play that song anymore because of this issue that, I recognize after being diagnosed. But yes, thank you very, very much for that. It was challenging, and it wasn't the easiest decision to continue even wanting to play. So putting myself through the work and getting to a point where now I'm very happy and satisfied with what I'm able to offer. It did take a minute, and I appreciate that.
Of course, of course. And, bringing that information to the project you ran, of course, being Lamb of God at the time, I'm still kind of surprised that they would have given you that email because, man, you were burned the pre-stage. You were like, I'll be honest here, when Randy was unable to do interviews for whatever reasons, you were the guy who was doing the interviews, doing the media, doing the talks like you're doing now. You really did do a lot of carrying, I think, at some point during that band. I could be wrong. I still, to this day, am a little surprised, and I've interviewed other guys in the band, and I've never really talked about it, but with you, I wanted to sort of say that I am a little surprised that separation happened, being that you were so ideal to that formula for that band.
It was devastating to me. It really was. Like I said, I really considered that kind of my life's work. But from my side of the street, I understand. I wasn't capable of playing the songs that we really needed to be playing. These were the songs that were not all of them, but there were 2 or 3 songs that were fairly popular songs, and I understand that that would cause them pause as far as why we can't play that. And again, with me taking on the Megadeth record and that doing so well, with me taking on the Protest record and that doing so well, I think the tensions were just high. And the metal sites always say, everybody's replaceable, right?
Right.
So I did take it hard. I did take it personally, and it sent me spiraling for a little while. But I've worked through those resentments, and I've got nothing but love for them, continuing on, and for each one of them. It was a difficult time, I think, for everybody. And it hurt me a lot. But thankfully, with things have drastically improved in my life. I've gotten remarried. We've got 3 teenagers. I've got a nice little house. We've got dogs, cats, and now I got Firstborn. That is, keeping me busy all the time. So I could look back on that and really be very, very proud of the time, effort, and career that I had with them. And I wouldn't do it any other way. It's unfortunate it ended the way it did, but in the end, looking back on it, I also think in that I was forced at the time to walk away from it. I don't know if there would have since that time. I don't know that there would have been a better time for anybody to depart. I mean, at least personally, I do feel like, we achieved more than we ever set out to do. And it had gotten to the point where, again, it doesn't really matter what the accolades were, but we had received basically all of them. So now it's just kind of this rinse and repeat on proving to everybody that we're still around. And I didn't feel like there was much higher to go. The ceiling was we reached, way higher than I ever thought we would, and all the best to them, and good luck, continuing on. But looking back now, despite where my headspace was at the time, but looking back now in a different mindset, it was probably a very good time to walk away.
And, and I'm just going to ask one final question with that. Then I do want to move on to some other great stuff. But I do want to finally ask has there been any open communication with anyone within the band at all? Like, have you spoken with them at all? Or at least even individual members? Is there still any sort of relationship there whatsoever? And if the opportunity came to return, do you think that you would consider that?
Oh, wow. There hasn't been any. And again, I've worked through those resentments, and I think about those guys all the time in a positive way. But since that letter, I believe it was in 2018, or the email, there's been absolutely no communication whatsoever from either side. Would I step in to do it again? I mean, oh man. I don't know that I would. It feels like, it would be like, would you go on a date with your ex-wife that you still kind of pine for? And it's like, I don't think that would be a very good idea for either of us. So I'll take the memories and the plaques and Grammys that I can show my parents or whatever, and we'll let it rest.
How was working with Dave Mustaine? I got to ask about that.
Oh man, dream come true.
Yeah.
Everybody loves to pick on Dave, and I feel bad for him. He had a rough time growing up, and I know his whole story. And we spent a lot of time talking about stuff. And Dave's he's a very nice guy. He's troubled, but in a way that makes him one of the best in the world. And that guy play guitar? It's unreal. I think I told you, that was kind of when I was a kid. That was the first thing that skateboarding or whatever, got the cassette tape, listen to all this punk rock and all this stuff. And I heard that Megadeth song, and that really set me on the path to do everything that I did. So to get that call was a dream come true. It started with, we met a few times just to see if we'd be able to get along. We had met in 2005 on a tour and got along then fairly well. And so he brought me to Nashville. I think for about 2 or 3 months, rented me a house in Nashville near him. And we would get together at a studio that was kind of in the middle and just jam all the time. It was just me and him for, I think, 2 months, kind of writing this stuff and going over this stuff. They had a great engineer, Chris Rakestraw, that was there helping us put parts together and thinking about stuff. And it was, I was like a totally wide-eyed, like dream come true kind of moment. But I was still, I professional about it in that, like, I know I'm only here for the session work. But that turned out so well that, basically he asked me to be in the band, and, 2 years later, we're touring the world and the thing wins a Grammy, which was insane. Maybe another thing that caused tension in Lamb of God. I had done a record with Protest to Hero that won them a Grammy, and now I go join Megadeth and that wins a Grammy, and what's going on here? It was a thrill. He, because of really who he is and the attention that he would have in any room that he would walk into, it's hard to get into that inner circle. But once you're in, I mean, he's the most generous, nicest, kindest guy. He's got a beautiful family. They're all wonderful people. I understand the defenses, the walls that are built up a little bit just for his own protection, really. Maybe he could have said things differently here and there along the way. It's not for me to say. But we had an amazing time together, and I still consider him a friend. And it was, an honor to be a part of that for as long as I was.
And you know what? That when I met Dave, the first time I interviewed Dave, it was backstage at a show he was doing in Toronto, and he couldn't have been more of a gracious host to me personally, taking me around to meet everybody, showing me stuff he was working on at the time. And at the time, it might have been Dystopia he was working on too. He was showing me some of the riffs and stuff. It was really hard for me to place him as that person that, I had always thought he was, the entity, that evil entity, when he was one of the sweetest, most down-to-earth, coolest guys I've ever met. So,
agreed.
Your drumming style is so identifiable. You're up there, for me at least, and I think for many others, with people like John Bonham, Neil Peart, and Ginger Baker. You feel fans expect you to sound a certain way, and no, honestly, you really do. Or how do you challenge those expectations now, being a drummer of, and I'm going to say that caliber, man. I'm not just blowing smoke, but you are identifiable. You're iconic behind the kit, man. You are. So, how do you challenge those expectations today?
Well, that's humbling for me to hear. So thank you for that. Wow, that's some incredible company. How do I challenge that? Well, I think the only way I could is to not continue to do exactly what I was doing before. I think the Firstborn is a challenge for me because it is outside of the box of what I probably expected to be doing. Probably what everybody thinks it is going to be the next project that I'm involved in is going to sound like, and to really try almost purposefully to not repeat the things that I had done. And you get after, like I said, the 22 years or whatever it is, you get pretty comfortable with your tool belt, and you might learn a new thing here or there, and not too old to learn, but you start I go to this when it sounds like that. I do this when it sounds like that. And Firstborn brings in like a completely, I don't even know, it's hard rock, I guess, but genre non-specific. And every song's a little bit different. And I can't just start doing triplet double bass all over, songs like that are on the record. So challenging myself in that way, and also challenging to me, like I said, I don't think people are going to really expect a lot of what's on there from me. And so I'm challenging those expectations as well, and allowing myself to be okay with the fact that people that are expecting that are probably going to be like, what the fuck is this? But for me to grow as a player at this point in my career and at my age, to try something else and to really have fun with it instead of being kind of pigeonholed and forced. I wasn't forced to do anything, but in my mind, there was a bit of a cage around what in Lamb and Megadeth, like what I need to be doing to maintain the trajectory of playing, or my playing, or what the band was, expecting or needed. And here it was just, kind of wide open. I could have done some of that stuff on some of these songs, but I didn't really want to repeat myself very much at all, and to just try to branch out and to have more fun without expectations on myself or worry about what the expectations from outside might be.
The guys in Protest the Hero as well. They're from my hometown as well, in Ontario. And I remember interviewing Luke Hoskin when they were working on the album, and I asked who did the drums, and when he said your name, my mind was blown. I'm like, you got Chris Adler on your album, dude, and not only that, the involvement you had in it, it was just mind blowing. And your work on that album is very technical, very intricate. I'm going to bring up Ashes of the Wake and Sacrament. I have to, just because your work is just so incredible on those albums as well. Genre defining, man. Like, what do you consider yourself your personal favorite recorded performance?
Oh wow, well, that is a tough one. I think probably the most creative, I think, things certainly evolved, but I think I was at the peak of my physical ability and kind of creative mindset. I don't think I think the cement was still a little bit wet, meaning we could have done anything. I think Ashes of the Wake is probably the greatest example of me doing things that were a little bit outside the box. And when I say that, I don't mean that I purposefully tried to challenge anything. It's just when I started playing drums, I didn't start playing drums until I was 21, and I had played guitar before that, and I was still am more of a guitar freak than a drummer fan. But during those teenage years, for most people, if they're playing an instrument like drums, like you kind of fall in love with like a band or a particular guy, and you start to emulate those kinds of things. And you can see how homogenous like a lot of metal is. Like the drums are very kind of similar in most bands. And I was really into, while I was playing guitar, as far as drummers go, if I were to think about it, I was really into stuff that like Stuart Copeland was doing and Billy Cobham was doing. And so when I got the opportunity to play drums, I didn't take any lessons, so it took a long time for me to figure out how the hell to do this. But those were the influences that I had. In fact, first songs I ever learned how to play were some Aerosmith stuff, and then I moved into Police stuff. And then when I got in this metal band, those were like the things that I knew how to do, and I just kind of sped them up. So I think looking back on it, I think when somebody hears it, it's slightly unique to the genre in that it's not the same, taka, 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 duga, 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 duga. There's some really different kinds of things in there. And again, it wasn't on purpose. That was just kind of what was influencing me at the time. And I think I had the dexterity and creative mind probably flowing best right when we did Ashes of the Wake.
You did name some people there like Stuart Copeland, who you wouldn't think, just in the broad scheme of metal would be, an influence. But I mean, he's a very great technical player, which you have a very, very wonderful technical side to your playing as well. Give me three drummers who made you pick up those sticks. Who were they?
Oh, wow. Well, Stuart, for sure. Stuart, again, Billy Cobham. I had an album, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, with him on it, and it blew me away. I think I saw him in a clinic where he came out and the drum kit wasn't what he had ordered or whatever, and he just like threw parts of it in the air and then just started like rocking, and it was unbelievable. It's hard. Wow. As far as metal goes, I don't think there's anybody better than Gene Hoglan. One of the best ever. And it's interesting that you asked the question, and it's interesting my previous answer, because when I went and spoke with Gene, he was actually asking me like, how are you coming up with some of that weird stuff? And I was like, me? Like, how are you coming up with some of that weird stuff? And I told him the same story. I told him the same story that I told you. I was like, well, I was listening to the Police and, kind of really stuff outside of metal. For influence. And he's like, but that's crazy, man. He's like, when I started playing drums, I took lessons and learned how to play funk. And he's like, then I got it super into metal. And so I took all that funk stuff and just sped it up. And so it's kind of like the same story. Like when you're not like blinders on, this is what metal is. When you bring in these different influences, it helps you. And I wasn't purposely doing it to stand out, but I think it did help me stand out a little bit at the time. And he had the same experience. So
No question, man.
yeah.
Now, like, if you could give one piece of advice to younger drummers trying to break into today's metal scene, I mean, let's admit it. I mean, the music scene today is not what it was when Burn the Priest got started, man. It's a whole
Right.
different landscape. What advice would you give young budding drummers today?
I mean, you're right. It has changed quite a bit, but I think my advice would probably be the same thing: is that, if you love what you're doing, it's a success, right? If you're doing it in hopes of 20 more people being at the next show, or selling more T-shirts, or being able to pay the rent, I think that's the wrong mindset. Like, if you love getting together with your friends and you're doing it for the genuine purpose of, like, this, we feel this is really cool. I think, you listen to Burn the Priest, some of that shit is just fucking unlistenable. But because we loved what we were doing, there was a vibe to it that was contagious. You could tell, like, these guys fucking mean it. Like, they're in it, And even though it was like wildly noisy, ugly music, it still had that kind of contagious vibe because we believed in it. So, believe in yourself and have fun. And at the end of the day, don't judge your success on how many people show up or how much money you're making. Just, if you're enjoying doing it, I think that's probably the great. And even looking back, like I said earlier, like the awards, the accolades, it's nice to have to show mom and dad, but it really doesn't mean anything. We really had a great time making the music together. And that was the most fulfilling part of any part of the career.
Swinging back to Firstborn, you guys going to be hitting the road?
The plan is, yes.
Nice.
So, we fortunately got signed, which is good. We're talking to several different booking agents, and right now we're looking at, so things are really, interesting in the world right now. Our singer is from India. So his first time ever in the US actually was recording this record, in Texas with Machine. And, I meant to tie that back together. Machine was the producer for Ashes of the Wake and Sacrament. Probably certainly the best two selling Lamb of God records, and he and I have maintained a friendship, and he was super stoked to do this project with us. I think we're going to be working with him again probably early next year, and in the meantime, the album comes out on July 19th, and we're, like I said, because of the administration, it might be, who knows what it's going to take to get a working visa for Garish to come over here. But booking agents are working on that, letting us know that, like, this might not be the right time to do that. So it's going to probably be a lot easier for myself and Myron to head to India and start up there and do like a Southeast Asia run from there. And so that's what we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks after the release. Well, I know that, Grisha has a band over there called Grisha and the Chronicles. If you haven't heard that, definitely do so. Myron's got a great fan base with his guitar playing and his solo records. So I think, and he's done a lot of stuff in Japan already. And I think with myself, with the three of us, I think we'll be able to make enough of a splash in that Southeast Asia market to be able to come back here and maybe have a little more leverage and maybe a little more, honestly, money to get the visas worked out to get Garish over here, because I'm sure there's going to be a ton of hoops, to get work visas for people from foreign lands. It's just, I don't know what the hell's going on these days, but hopefully we can figure it out.
It has been an honor, my friend. I can't tell you. I wish I could talk to you for hours, dude. I really could. This has been amazing. Thanks for everything so much. Thanks for your career. Thanks for what you've done and given fans like myself. It really means so much, dude.
That feels great, man. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
All right, and that was the one and only Chris Adler. And the Firstborn stuff, man, sounds killer. Can't wait to hear the new stuff and even see Firstborn on the road, man, because this new band is great. And it's great to have Chris behind the kit again. And going through something like Musicians Dystonia, not a simple thing, man. And being able to pull through that, you got to hand it to that guy. All right, but we're going to shift gears into something new for the show. This is the debut of a brand new feature we're calling Inside the Underground, where I sit down with everyday but essential people who make up the heartbeat of the metal and music community, okay? They're not always in the headlines, but they're out there grinding, creating, and keeping the spirit of heavy music alive. Today, I'm joined by Joe Davis of the Joe Davis Band, a killer independent artist and guitarist who's been steadily building something real in the underground scene. We talk about his journey, his music, and why people should be paying attention. Joe, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Just for people who don't know the Joe Davis Band or who you are, what you are, give us the lowdown. Like, who are you? What do you do?
It is Les Pauls and Overalls. It's the Joe Davis Band from Kannapolis, North Carolina. We're a Southern heavy metal hard rock band that's guitar driven, guitar oriented, and we're 7 albums out. We've got a DVD out. We've been playing a long time. We've been doing shows for a long time, and we're always out trying to promote the band and show people what we do. I mean, it's like I said, we want to say it was Southern heavy metal. We just coined the phrase, I guess, but we're on the heavy side of things, but we're also on the Southern side of things a little bit too. So, but that's what we do. And we got this really cool original thing going on, and we're trying to tell more people about it.
You've got something very cool here that you're doing, man, and I definitely see it flourishing quite well. And and I like the fact that you coined the term Southern heavy metal. I mean, it could be even like starting a new subgenre, which I think is a long overdue subgenre. You know what I mean?
Couldn't help it. It was just like being where we're from. Even though my drummer's from Cleveland, Ohio, but he was down here for a long time. But it was just like we grew up on Black Sabbath and Leonard Skinner. I think everybody down here did, and it was kind of like adding our own thing and our creation to where we come from with that. So, I mean, we're even still progressing and creating new sounds and new music all the time and pushing the boundaries of that all the time. That's what we do. I mean, Southern heavy metal was a scary term, but, it's basically what it comes down to, because we got some songs that are acoustic stuff that we wrote that were sincere and heartfelt. And we got some stuff that'll just melt the building into pieces. So we've got something for everybody.
Now, how long have you been playing yourself, Joe? Like, how long have you been involved in music?
I've been playing guitar actually since I was a little kid in the late 70s, and I started playing in bands in the 80s, playing live with bands. So I got a lot of experience playing a lot of different stages, playing live with a lot of different artists over the years, and I kind of got into my own thing in the late 90s after being in a bunch of different bands, and some of them the bands were real, I'll say successful, but we got to play with a lot of nationals. We got to play with a lot of different shows, and I got a great education. And when I started doing my own Joe Davis band thing, I started applying that education.
And listening to the tracks I've listened to, again, I mean, that heaviness is there, that crunchiness is there, that groove is there. Why metal for you? What is it about metal?
Heavy metal music is the most powerful form of music on earth. It is to me, it's the most interesting, because you can take that music and you can go as extreme any direction you can with it. And it seems like people and the fans of heavy metal music tend to get along better than any other fan in the world. I mean,
totally.
Metal show and everybody gets along great. Yeah. So, and I noticed that years and years and years ago, and it was like, it just seemed like it was more fun to associate with them, because everybody was less judgmental and everybody was having a good time regardless. They were there just to rock out and everybody had a great time. So yeah, that made me really like heavy metal to begin with. But being able to take music and take it as extreme as you want to without, any backlash, I think that's why heavy metal music is the greatest.
Tell our listeners right now here on the podcast about releases you've had. Like, if people want to hear your music, like, where do they go? What can they listen to? What would you suggest?
The joedavisband.com is our number one site with everything on it. We've got 7 albums out over the last 20 years. The first album, called You Can't Stop Me, is almost like a AC/DC on steroids kind of thing that we put out, and it still attracts attention. We still play those songs live. And then the newer stuff, like the Blue and the Gray album, which was the last album we put out, sounds more like Megadeth. and it has that kind of vibe to it, and it's still got our own Southern twist to it. And so we've got an album called The Brink of Destruction that's just straight up heavy metal, and it's got some great songs on it, sincere. We also have a DVD where we played at the Fillmore in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're one of the few bands that could bring that many people to actually make the show really happen as an original artist. And we played here, and we made a DVD of that show. And we had a really great crowd that night. It was incredible. And it was our show, and it made us feel like $1 million. But we made this really cool DVD. And it was basically us just going off live. It was just full blast. Let's just go and make it happen. So it was, we've got a lot of variety of all kinds of great, crazy things going on with it. So
I got to catch this DVD, man. I'd love to watch that, because I've heard the music, but I mean, I've never seen you perform live. So I got to check that out, dude. I got to get on that. Is that online? Can I catch that online? Or what?
A sample of it on our YouTube channel, but it's just a sample, and it says coming soon, but it actually already came out and for it. So it's on the internet. You can see 30 seconds of a live song. But we're planning on going live here again soon, and we're actually going to do a new thing where every everything we do live from here on out, we're actually going to be either broadcasting it live, or we're going to be filming it and being able to get it to our friends and fans out there. That way we can keep sharing the music, keep sharing the shows. And we're always more of a live band with live interaction with our audience, more than just getting up and playing. I mean, we really engage our audience, and we really engage our friends, and they know what they're going to get when they come to our show. So it's pretty intense, and we want to be able to keep. Then if they want to see the show they went to, we want to be able to provide that. So in the future, we're going to be doing lots of that.
So are you born and bred from Carolina then? Is that your hometown?
Yeah, I'm from Kannapolis, North Carolina. I grew up here, but I've worked in lots of different music scenes all over the country. But I am from here because my family's still here, and so I decided, I'm still hanging around right now, just for being, because it's Kannapolis, and everybody I know is here. My road crew lives near here. All my band people live, except for my drummer David. He lives in Cleveland. He lives in Cleveland, Ohio. He actually drives down here from Cleveland, Ohio for band practice.
How long does that drive?
I think he said 7 hours, 6.5 hours.
That's a dedicated drummer. That's a good drummer.
Awesome. Great. My bass player, his name's David Filizzi, and my bass player's name's Gene King. He's also from Kannapolis, but he lives in Charlotte, but he's also from Kannapolis. And we got a very musical thing going on. Everybody likes being together and playing and working together and creating live show and live music. It's a lot of fun. It's really good,
I think it would be really cool if you did start streaming your live performances, because from the music I've heard, you sound like a band that you got to experience live, man. I mean, like that energy there. I'd love to have that energy sort of just pour out of the stage. You know what I mean? I bet it's killer.
I think that's the thing about going live with a show, is that when people come to see that, they want to see somebody go ballistic. They want to feel the show. They want to see somebody really be sincere about what they're doing. And that's the way it's always been with this band. And everything we've ever done, the albums are that way. And the presentation that we do live is that way as well. I mean, we really bring it live. I mean, we work hard at it though, too. We don't just, bang on our guitars a couple of days and call it a band. We don't do that. We seriously really get in the band and rehearse the audio and the production and the whole thing. We do it because we want it to be killer, man. If somebody pays to see you, you want it to be the best it possibly can be. And if you come see us, you're going to see a band that's got its act together. I mean, that's what we do. Yeah. And a lot of bands, they don't care. It's like, but we really care. So we wanted to be good. We wanted to be killer.
I've always been obsessed kind of like with the geography of metal, especially in North America. What's the metal scene like in North Carolina? Do you find that you're struggling against a different scene, which is sort of dominant, or, is metal strong and flourishing there?
There are several heavy metal bands out of Charlotte that could do really well if they would get away from Charlotte. It's not that Charlotte's a bad place, this area or anything. It's just there's definitely better metal scenes, different cities that would accept their band more if they would go work those different scenes. Because here in Charlotte, it's like, if you're, basically the majority of the bands are here, or the music, we support all the bands. It don't matter who they are, but the majority of the bands are cover bands. And they're doing they're doing tribute bands and things like that, and that's cool. But the original metal bands, they're fighting to find decent places to play, and that's the reason why they have such a hard time. We don't have that problem because we're kind of in we're in a strange area. Like, we could play, we get it. We're a heavy band, but we still get invited to play like the Uptown Amphitheater thing in Kannapolis and stuff like that. We still get calls about stuff like that, and so it kind of puts us in a different spot. Plus we've been playing a long time, so it's not. We're watching a lot of the newer bands struggle with that, and we invite those bands to play with us too. We don't care how heavy they are, or loud they are, or whatever. I'll call them in a minute and bring them on stage. I don't care. I'll bring them in, and because I think that there needs to be more support with the other types of music and the heavy bands. I love anybody that's creative and sincere. I'm into what they're doing.
Who are some notable names that you may have jammed with, taken the stage with? Anybody that you may have experienced performing with?
There's quite a few. I did some acoustic shows with Jeff Tate from Queensryche.
That's awesome, man.
He is incredible. His people are nice people. I was blown away that they asked me to open, which really just knocked me off my off my seat. And we did some shows. I worked with. We did that. I've done. I don't know. Like, say, I grew up for Deep Purple in Connecticut acoustic, which was incredible. Did that. Let's see. There's so many. We played with Jackal. We played some shows with Jackal. I lose track. I think it's something.
You mentioned Jackal. Yeah, I think you'd be a perfect band to play Sturgis because Jesse's up there, right? So
we haven't ever done it, and but we want to. You know what I mean? We just haven't done it, and COVID was really set everything back. 4 years ago, we were planning on going out live and really getting on our feet with some things. And when COVID hit, it really knocked us for a loop. It took us in a whole. We had to shut everything down for a little bit. Like we had to let our road crew, everybody off the hook for a while because everybody had to go get jobs and just stop for a minute to take care of all their family business and everything. So that knocked us for a loop. But we're making our big comeback now, especially since we got some support from the label and things like that. The Rock Avenue Records people, they're been really nice to me. So.
They're a great label. You know, I have good friends with them for a couple of years now, and they're a hard working label that really pushes their artists great. So I think that you're in good hands, man.
I feel that way. As soon as we signed with them, I got like phone calls from people that knew them, and they were calling me left and right, going, "Hey, man, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? They're really good people." And I heard the same thing, and I was like, "Okay, you guys," I was checking it out, because I wanted to know what I was getting into. Because over the years, we've had good and bad record deals. And, of different types. And I kind of had shied away from them. But our last album, The Blue and the Gray, because of COVID, didn't get put out on the internet or anything. So Rock Avenue Records said, well, we're interested in looking into this. So I was like, okay. So since the album was basically still brand new after it was originally recorded, I said, yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah. But as far as like working with other artists, we've opened for everybody. I think if you name a band, we probably opened for them at one time or another. There's probably I was trying to think of something that I hadn't told anybody we've done, but I'm not sure what. Let's see. I think we did some stuff back in the day with Slash's Snake Pit.
Yep.
And we did something over the years. It's a blur, but bands like Firehouse, Warrant. We did back in the day. We did all that kind of stuff. But I was in a different band back then. And it all led up to the Joe Davis thing. So, and I didn't ever want to be in the Joe Davis band. A record label that actually came to me in 1998 and proposed this crazy idea about calling the band that. And at that point, I was tired of going through band names. It had nothing to do with ego. It was actually, I was sick and tired of like every week somebody had a different band name. And I just got to the point where, look, man, I just want to sing and write songs and focus on music. And just call it Joe Davis Band. Let's just get on with it. It wasn't about, I'm Joe Davis. I'm sitting down here polishing my guitars tonight. It wasn't like that. It was like, it's kind of like Gary Moore. He's Gary Moore. He goes and plays. He's just Gary Moore. He plays guitar. That's kind of like that. I'm Joe Davis. I go play guitar. So it's the Joe Davis Band. And we rolled with it. And it's a fun thing, man. Everybody enjoys it. We've got fans from all different walks of life. We have young fans, old fans from just, sometimes I'm amazed because we have all these different, like over the years, we've been in business a long time. We're still trying to make our mark in this business. And we have fans from different eras, different time periods and stuff. And I've got young people that love the heavy stuff. And I've got some older people that like the Southern Rocky stuff. And I'm like, I love everybody coming to the show and it works. We have this incredible fan base. Yeah. It's just really cool.
So what's happening in the days ahead for the Joe Davis Band? Like, what do you got planned?
Well, this interview was a really big thing for me because, I was really wanting to meet you too, because our paths are crossing over something I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
And about the Crown Theater in Birmingham, England. I think you wrote a story about the Crown.
That's right.
And, the Crown, Black Sabbath, their guitar tech, his name was Peter Resty. Pete lived with me for 7 years before he passed away. And Pete was actually, he was a guitar tech for Ritchie Blackmore and Tony Iommi. And he worked for all these different bands. And Pete was just unbelievable human being in general. He was an incredible guitar tech, mechanic on guitars and everything. He was just incredible. And I was so honored and blessed to make his friendship. But right before he passed away, about a year before he passed away, he was flying over to the Crown in Birmingham, and he was working in the building. He was going over there and working on it, and he was helping the lady that owned the property. They were going to rebuild this venue. They were going to reopen this venue. And I was up on Pete every day going, man, I want to play that venue. What do we have to do? I want to go to play this legendary venue because that's where all the greats started at. And I wanted to play there too. And Pete was like, well, look, man, you got to get a passport. You got to get on a plane. You can come over, but you're going to work. This ain't like, you know, you're going to come over, you're going to be cutting wood and cleaning floors, and we're going to get into this thing. And it didn't happen. Like, because Pete started getting sick about 3 months or 4 months before he got the word to really get into it. And then he passed away. And then the Crown thing changed. I believe it changed owners. And so I don't know what happened to the Crown, but when I seen your story online, I was like, the Crown, you know, there's the Crown again. You know what? There's something to this Crown.
Yeah.
You know, it's magical club, you know, it's magical venue.
Iconic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's iconic. And I want to play there. I still want to play there. And when Pete died, man, it was just like, you know, and it was so crazy because Bill Ward from Black Sabbath called me on the phone like a day after Pete died.
Wow.
And to talk to him at all, to even speak to him at any capacity for, you know, somebody like me, just a nobody from Kannapolis, what blew my mind. He called me on the phone and said, hey, my name's Bill Ward. You might have heard of me. I used to play drums for Black Sabbath.
I've heard of you.
Yeah. And I'm like, I have like your picture on my wall.
Wow.
I have every album that you have ever done. I have, you know, and I know all your music backwards and forwards. I mean, I know it all. And he was just like, you know, where can I send flowers? Where can I come? And I was just blown away. Like, I can't even make sentences at this point, you know.
Wow.
But Pete knew everybody in the business, and he lived with me, and I was so fortunate to be in his presence because I learned so much from him too. I kid you not, we spent 2 weeks. I bet I spent 2 weeks just sitting and talking to him. I mean, we stayed up all night and day just sitting talking about the different bands he had worked with, and Pete was on his name is in the album Born Again with Black Sabbath. He's in the song Trash. It actually says his name in the song.
Oh,
Disturbing the Priest is about Pete. You
really?
Sabbath to say it. Yeah, Disturbing the Priest is about Pete because he was the one that was setting off the explosives that were making the priest mad. That was Pete Resty.
That's the Ian Gillan album too. That's a very unique album from Sabbath.
And everywhere that Pete went, it was either Ronnie James Dio or Ian Gillan. Everywhere Pete was somehow involved with getting Dio into Sabbath. He was somehow involved in getting Ian Gillan into Sabbath and Pete had this incredible life because everywhere he went, it was like he was always with all these really great, you know, historic musicians, these incredible icons. And I just felt honored to even know the guy, you know, just even be his friend. And he lived with me in Kannapolis. He moved down here. And it was culture shock for him because he was from up north and he could speak like 6 different languages. Wow. And he worked for Don Arden, Sharon Osbourne's dad. Yeah, that's who Pete came from. So we were going to make a movie in honor of Pete, and we were going to call it Pete Resty the Movie. And we're still working on it. And Ian Gillan's actually in the movie. He cut us a bunch of footage to put in the movie. And so did like some guys from Manowar, David Shankle and Kenny Rhino. The drummer that played with Manowar, all those guys made us videos, and there were so many new artists, so many different artists that came in that made videos just for us to put in the movie. And the movie wasn't even about money; had nothing to do about money. The movie was going to be for free. We were going to give it away, and it was about sharing Pete's ridiculous, crazy story working for all these bands, you know. And that was the beauty of the movie was going to be trying to tell Pete's life story. And we've been working on it for like 4 years. Because putting together a movie was a whole new animal to me.
Sure.
I've never made a movie before. I've made DVDs, concert DVDs, albums, all that, but not making a movie.
Yeah.
You know, the movie is way different. And I didn't know that till I got into it. And I was like, this is going to take a lot longer than I thought. So,
a hidden icon, man. That sounds awesome. And I really hope that this movie comes to fruition. I'd love to see this. I think a lot of people would love this, you know?
I'm working on it.
Joe, where can people go to check out your stuff, man? Once again, the website?
It's djodavisband.com, and they can go there, and I think they'll find links to my Facebook page. They can talk to me anytime. I'm always open to discuss music, band, guitars, whichever one, you know, and I'm always open. My door's always open to everybody. You know, I don't hide behind the internet much. You can find me. And but djodavisband.com and JDB Rocks on Facebook.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Joe, for taking the time to talk to me today, man. I look forward to this movie, and I'm going to get a DVD off of your label. I got to check this out, man.
Yeah, we'll talk, man. We'll figure it out. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Take care. All the best.
All right, thanks.
A huge thanks going out to both Chris Adler and Joe Davis for joining me this week. And remember, you can check out the full article, embedded podcast player, video content, and tons more at loadedradio.com. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts so you can never miss an episode. And hey, if you dug today's show, share it around and help us keep the underground loud and alive. Thanks for listening. And until next time, as always, I'm Scott Penfold for Loaded Radio, and keep it loud. Loaded